I opened the message at 3:14 p.m. The ceremony had started at 2. No apology, no call, no explanation, just a link. Here's the live stream if you still want to watch, still want to. As if I had been the one who turned something down. Stared at the text until my vision blurred. I hadn't even taken off my shoes yet. My key was still in my hand. My bag had slipped from my shoulder and was hanging midair by the hook of my elbow. I didn't tap the link. Instead, I placed my phone face down on the kitchen table, the one I had built by hand 2 summers ago, sanding each leg until they matched the old wooden floor I thought I'd never leave. That table had heard everything. Every small laugh, every whispered cry. And now it heard nothing as I sat down across from it in silence. Somewhere in the digital world my sister was walking, down the aisle in a dress that had never belonged to her. That dress was mine. Grandma promised it to me when I was 13. I remember the box she kept it in. Pale blue, with yellowed tissue. It smelled like cedar and old lavender sachets. She used to keep it under her bed. And every spring, she would bring it out just to air it, as if the lace needed to breathe. "You'll wear this one day, baby," she told me, smoothing the veil with a kind of reverence I couldn't explain then. "You're the only one who understands what it meant to her." Her, my great-grandmother. She wore it when she married during the war. She made it herself. Every stitch was by candlelight. And now, it was somewhere else entirely. Clinging to someone else's skin. I hadn't spoken to my sister in weeks. Not since the seating chart debacle. That was the word Mom used. Debacle. As if I had been difficult or dramatic. I had asked one question. Why was I listed as family? Friend on the RSVP? And I never got a reply. Just a phone call from Mom saying I shouldn't make things about myself. She's the bride. This is her moment. Don't ruin it with your little feelings. My little feelings. I was there when she got dumped at 20. I was the one who stayed, up with her, baking frozen lasagna at 2 a.m., and talking through what she'd say when she got her closure. I was the one who gave her that job at my bookstore when she couldn't find work after college, and now I wasn't even sister anymore. Just some spectator, a ghost with a front row stream. I stood up slowly and walked to the closet. It wasn't there. The box. I already knew it, but I checked anyway. The top shelf, the back corner, the coat rack behind the linen. Empty. They must have taken it quietly. When I was out. When I was working. When I trusted that no one would touch it because they knew what it meant. Because they knew what it meant to me. I don't know how long I stood in the hallway. It was dim, but the dust floating in the sunlight looked like a memory. Something weightless and impossible to hold. My phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Dad. "Hope you're watching. She looks beautiful. Grandma would be proud." I didn't reply. I just sat on the floor, knees to my chest, arms folded over them like I used to do when I was 12 and hiding under the stairs from the yelling. Except this time, no one was yelling. They were celebrating. And I wasn't even there. The last time I held the dress, it was snowing. Not hard. Just the kind that comes softly and disappears on the sleeve before you can feel its weight. It was the day after Grandma's funeral. The house was still full of coats draped over chairs and half-eaten casseroles nobody really wanted. I had slipped away from the noise and gone upstairs to her bedroom. Just to sit where her scent still lived, where the silence felt like her, not just absence. The box was there, under the bed where it had always been. I pulled it out like I was unearthing a memory. I didn't open it. I just touched the edges, the corners she'd taped twice because they were soft with age. I didn't cry then, not because I wasn't grieving, but because grief hadn't fully formed yet. It was still the heavy quiet, the stillness before, the collapse, and then she entered. My sister. "Is that it?" she asked. Her voice was low, too polite, not like her usual tone, the one that always sounded like a question with an answer already built in. I nodded. She knelt beside me, not touching the box, just looking at it like it was something foreign, antique, coveted. "It's beautiful," she said. Then she added, like a throwaway line, "Grandma said we could share it." I didn't respond, because she hadn't said that. Not once. She'd said I would wear it. She'd looked me in the eyes when she did, hands on mine, her voice as steady as her stitching. "You're the only one who'd respect what it meant," she had said. "Not just the look, the story. That matters." But I stayed quiet that day, because the house was full of grief and casseroles and people whispering about wills, and silence, I had learned, was what made the family function, even when it didn't. A week later, the box was gone. When I asked Mom about it, she smiled like I'd asked something naive. "Oh, your sister wanted to have it dry cleaned. It needs a little brightening. We'll all take care of it together. Don't worry. We'll all take care of it." As if legacy was something you tossed in a group chat. As if preservation meant nothing without display. I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay." And that was the last I saw of it. That spring, I noticed they stopped talking about the wedding in front of me. No one told me the date changed. No one asked if I was still planning to be a bridesmaid. The group text got quiet, then loud again, but without me in it. I wasn't removed, just left behind. Worse than erasure, I was unnecessary. The sound of my neighbor's door closing broke the memory. I looked up from the hallway floor. My knees were stiff now. The light had shifted. The phone was still on the table, screen dark. I hadn't moved in hours, but the quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was saturated now, with the heaviness of everything I had swallowed. All the small moments I told myself to let go, move on, be the bigger person. And each of those moments had formed a sediment layer somewhere in me. And today, the pressure cracked it open. Because today was supposed to be sacred. Today was supposed to be mine, one day. And instead, I was watching it happen on a screen I hadn't tapped. I walked to the kitchen sink, turned on the tap. Not for water, just for the sound. My eyes burned, but I still hadn't cried. Instead, I opened the drawer next to the stove, the one with warranties, spare cords, old envelopes. I shuffled until I found it. The faded photograph of Grandma holding up the veil in her garden. There I was, 8 years old. Standing in the sunlight, hands over my mouth in awe, as the lace fell over my shoulders like magic. She had written on the back, "To my girl, for your one true day. Love, always." I traced the words with my thumb. Then, very slowly, I tore it in half, not out of rage, but because I realized something brutal. They didn't take the dress. They took the day. And now I was going to take back everything else. It started earlier than I ever admitted. Before the dress. Before the wedding. before Grandma's hands guided mine through a needle and thread and told me I had patience in my bones, I was 10. My sister had broken a vase in the hallway, a tall one, blue with silver trim. It had belonged to our great-aunt or someone like that, one of those family heirlooms that got more important after it shattered. She had tried to balance it on her head like a model. I had said, "Don't." It hit the floor in 2 pieces. Maybe 3. I remember the shape of it, jagged like a crooked smile. When Mom came in, I had already picked up the larger shard. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even afraid, just stunned. Still holding the glass when Mom asked, "What did you do?" I looked over at my sister. She was biting her lip, eyes wide and watery like a trained actor. "She told me to," she said. "She dared me." It wasn't true, but it was easier. Mom sighed, tired and annoyed. She didn't yell. She just sent me to my room with a single phrase I wouldn't forget. "Why do you always have to make things difficult?" I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, watching the hallway door, hoping someone would come in and say sorry. Even whisper it. No one did. Dad didn't get involved. He never did when it came to girl things. And my sister? She knocked 30 minutes later to see if I'd give her my lip gloss. I hadn't thought about that day in years. But now it came rushing back, clear and cold, as I stood by the window of my apartment and watched the snow begin again. Small, hesitant flakes. The livestream link still sat unopened on my phone. I hadn't deleted it. Maybe I was still waiting for someone to realize. To correct the mistake. To say, "You should be here." But they wouldn't. Because in their story, I was always the difficult one. The one with too many boundaries. Too many feelings. The one who wanted more than her share. I think that's what Mom said once. In a hushed phone call, she thought, I couldn't hear. She always thinks she's owed something, just like her father. That night I did something small. Not revenge. Not exactly. But something that gave me breath. I went into the old Dropbox folder we shared. Wedding Planning 2023. I had uploaded the venue mock-ups, the catering ideas, the full floral design PDF I made late at night after my shift. Unpaid. I opened it. Then I right-clicked each file and quietly removed them, one by one. I didn't delete anything. I just took my work back. The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was delicious. It felt like the first time I inhaled in, a room where no one was watching me for a reaction, where I didn't have to apologize for being present. I didn't tell anyone what I did. No text, no call, no rant. Just the absence of me. Let them scroll and wonder where the files went. Let them look for the vision they praised and forgot to thank. Let her call the planner in a panic when the vendor references disappear. Because if I'm just a guest, then they don't need my fingerprints on anything. It's strange how power feels so quiet. Not like thunder. More like turning off a faucet that was dripping for years. A hush. A clean break. Not a bang. Just peace. And I hadn't even touched the heating bill yet. But I would. I used to think holidays were just crowded rooms and casserole fatigue. Now I know they were rehearsals. For disappearing. Thanksgiving last year. That was the first time they forgot my name in the group photo. Not forgot exactly. Just skipped it. Let's get one of the whole family, Dad said. Just parents. And kids. I had already taken off my apron, still warm from basting the turkey, and stepped toward the fireplace where they were gathering. Mom smiled at me the way people smile at waiters who bring the wrong order. "You're fine where you are, honey. You look tired." Tired. I had woken up at 5 to prep the pies. I had cleaned the kitchen after everyone spilled into the den. But sure, I looked tired. My sister's boyfriend, now husband, was standing right beside them, arm around her. His smile caught the light. He wasn't told to sit out. He wasn't too much, or just a helper. He wasn't handed a paper plate, because I was. That same day, everyone else got the good china, the ivory set with gold, trim that Mom only brought out twice a year, and I was given one of the heavy-duty paper plates from Costco. When I paused at the table, she said, "Well, we ran out. But you don't mind, do you?" No. I didn't mind. Just like I didn't mind when she gave my old bedroom to my sister to store things during the engagement. Just like I didn't mind when I wasn't included in the spa weekend because it was for bridesmaids only. Just like I didn't mind when they bought her a pre-wedding getaway, using the same credit card I had helped pay off during the pandemic. Because minding had never worked. Minding made me the problem. Thanksgiving was the last time I went home. No big exit. No door slammed. I just stayed seated on the porch for longer than usual after dessert, watching the neighbors' lights come on, listening to the echo of laughter that didn't include my voice, holding my paper plate like it meant something, and when Mom came out and said, "Don't be dramatic," I didn't say a word. I just nodded and left before midnight. It's strange what details come back when you sit in stillness. This afternoon, I found the receipt for that gold-trimmed dinner set. I had ordered it online 5 years ago, as a gift, paid in full. The invoice was in my old inbox. No one remembered that. Just like no one remembered that I paid the deposit on the reception venue, the one she's dancing in now, spinning in my dress. I didn't even ask to be paid back. I had called it a gesture, a contribution. Now I call it history, and I'm going to rewrite it, not with anger, with erasure. I opened my laptop and logged into the family's shared cloud storage. I was still listed as an admin. No one had bothered to change it. Every album, every receipt, every shared document. I could see it all. I downloaded what was mine, not just legally, but emotionally. The centerpiece's mood board I designed, the registry links I helped organize, the photographer brief I had retyped when she was too stressed. And I deleted each one from the cloud, not the originals. I kept those. But the shared illusion? Gone. A message popped up in the group thread 30 minutes later. "Hey, is anyone else missing files from the wedding folder?" I didn't respond, just like they hadn't when I was listed as a guest. Just like they hadn't when they took what was promised to me and called it family tradition. It wasn't about punishment. It was about presence. And now mine had finally been removed. From their table, from their folders, from their story. I visited the cemetery 2 days after the wedding. It was cloudy, the kind of pale gray sky that feels like an apology the sun is too shy to make. The cold wasn't bitter yet, but it wrapped around my coat sleeves like it wanted me to stay still. Grandma's headstone wasn't ornate, just simple granite with her name, 2 dates, and the words she used to sign her letters with. Ever gently, always yours. I had brought the photo, the one I had torn in half. I hadn't thrown it away. I taped it back together. Not perfectly. The crease still showed, running through my face like a scar. But it was whole again, quietly broken, quietly mended. I knelt down and placed it beside the flowers someone else had left. maybe Mom, maybe the church ladies. It didn't matter. None of them had known her like I did. "Guess what, Grandma?" I said aloud, the way I used to when I visited her after school. She wore it. I paused. She didn't ask. She didn't say thank you. And she didn't look like she understood it. The wind shifted. She looked beautiful, but not like you. Not like the stories. Not like it meant anything. I swallowed hard. "I didn't cry," I told her. "I didn't scream. I didn't show up. I just watched them unravel, quietly. A bird called out in the distance, then flew off alone." "I think I get it now," I whispered. "You weren't giving me a dress. You were giving me permission to leave things behind." That night, I cleared out the last box from my parents' attic, the one I had never been allowed to touch until Mom had time. It held my childhood, drawings, my school awards, a letter I wrote to Santa when I was 6, asking for a day when no one fights. Taped to the inside flap was a note from Grandma I had forgotten. "In case they ever forget how much you matter." I didn't cry then either, but I folded the box closed, carried it down the stairs, and put it in the back of my car. I moved everything else out that week. My name was still listed as co-owner on their home utility account. Still listed as the second signatory on the catering contract. Still the emergency contact for my sister's vet for some reason. I started withdrawing, not loudly, just enough to remind them I had been holding more than they noticed. I called the caterer first. "Hi. Yes, this is a heads up that I'm no longer associated with that account. You'll want to remove my name before any renewals are billed." They paused. "Weren't you the main contact?" "I was," I said. "But not anymore." I closed the account. Then I called the heating service for my parents' house. My name was still on the winter contract. I had added it 3 years ago during the cold snap, when they couldn't afford the full bill and my sister was saving for a ring. I canceled the auto-pay. Silently. No note. I didn't watch the wedding video, but I heard from an old coworker that there had been a hiccup with the vendor slides, something about files missing and the bride getting snippy mid-toast. She was practically red in the face. They laughed. It was kind of awkward. I just smiled softly and said I hadn't seen it, and I never would, because this story was no longer about her, or the dress, or even the wedding. It was about me, finally letting go of the version of myself they always expected to show up and stay quiet. The version who was always dependable, always generous, always on the edges of someone else's spotlight. They told me to watch her wedding online, and now I was watching something else entirely, myself. For the first time, I didn't go completely off-grid. I answered texts, occasionally, the short kind. Yep. Okay. Busy. It was easy to disappear without deleting anything. People don't notice you're gone if you still answer, just without emotion. Weeks passed after the wedding. No one brought up the dress. No apology. No confession. Not even a half-hearted attempt at, "We thought you'd understand." I think they were hoping silence would wipe the slate clean, as if the betrayal could melt quietly under the weight of time and shared blood. But I had stopped bleeding for them. The thank you cards arrived one Friday morning in a cream envelope. No return address, but I recognized the script, my sister's loopy handwriting, halfway between bridal elegance and forced gratitude. There were 2 cards inside. The first was addressed to family and friends. It was generic, typed, probably copied and pasted. The second one had my name, but not in her hand, in Mom's. Short, cold. Thank you for your earlier support of the wedding planning process. We're sorry it didn't work out for you to attend. Didn't work out. Like I had a scheduling conflict. Like I had RSVP'd maybe, and then just flaked. There was no signature, no love, no warmth. Just a final sentence. We hope this next chapter brings you clarity. I held the card for a moment longer, then slid it into the recycling without tearing it. It didn't deserve the drama of being ripped, just the quiet dignity of not being kept. That weekend, I wrapped the final gift. It had been sitting in my closet for 3 months. A vintage wooden tea box I'd spent days refinishing. I had carved a tiny G on the inside of the lid in honor of Grandma, and filled each compartment with hand-selected blends. Lavender for sleep, Earl, gray for mornings, chamomile for softness. It was meant for my sister, a wedding gift, something personal, gentle. From a time before, I realized how unreciprocated I had become. I removed the bags one by one and placed them in my own kitchen drawer. The box, once full of something thoughtful, was now just wood and air. But still, beautiful. I placed it gently in the fireplace, not to burn, just to be seen for what it was, an empty offering. I lit a single match, watched it flicker above the kindling, and then blew it out. I couldn't do it. Not out of sentimentality, but because even destruction felt like too much energy for what she had given me in return. Instead, I took the box to a local thrift shop the next morning. When the cashier asked if I wanted a receipt for tax purposes, I just shook my head. Some things you let go of quietly, not for credit, but for freedom. Later that night, I got a message from my sister. First one in weeks. Hey, random. But did you ever end up sending us something? No hi. No warmth. No invitation to reconnect. Just a ping. A reminder that her gratitude was conditional, dependent on what she could unwrap. I didn't reply. She followed it an hour later with a second message. Just checking because Mom said you were working on something handmade, LOL. Still nothing. Then, finally the third. Guess not then. I stared at those 2 words for a long time. Guess not then, as if she was playing detective, and I was the missing clue. But I wasn't missing. I had just stepped off stage, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for leaving the scene. I found a studio apartment 3 blocks from the bookstore. 4th floor, no elevator. But the windows faced east, and the sunlight poured in early like an apology for the years I spent waking in shadows. It was small. Not Instagram small with white marble and hanging ferns. Real small. Peeling baseboards. A stubborn radiator. A kitchen just wide enough for one person to turn around in. But it was mine, and more importantly, no one had ever raised their voice here. No one had told me I was too sensitive here. No one had borrowed things and called it love. I slept on a mattress on the floor for the first 2 weeks. No frame, no dresser. Just folded clothes, a chipped mug, and a soft hum of nothingness. And, still, it was the most peace I'd felt in years. Back at the bookstore, they gave me a promotion. Quietly, without fanfare. It wasn't flashy. Just more hours, more say in the front window displays, and an actual key to open and close. "You're the only one who treats the place like it matters," the owner said. "You notice the things no one else does." I smiled and said thank you, but I wanted to tell her. That's what I was taught. To notice, to remember, to fill in every gap where someone forgot to be kind. It's just, in my family, that became the expectation. And then, the entitlement. Until the giving became so one-sided, it no longer looked like love. It looked like servitude. The next time my sister posted a story, it was a photo of a wine glass at some soft-lit restaurant. Captioned, "Date night. With hubby. Finally recovering from wedding stress, LOL." In the background, blurred but still visible, was the tea box. She had found one. A copy of the one I made, mass-produced. No carving inside. No story. Just aesthetics. And somehow, that made it perfect for her. Later that night, I opened a drawer and pulled out the small things I had kept from Grandma. A thimble, a pressed violet. Her last grocery list. I laid them out on the floor like artifacts. Not because I needed to cry, but because I needed to remember what quiet love looked like. Love that didn't post itself, didn't wear itself like a crown. It just lingered, softly, unnoticed, but real. The first snow came the following morning. Not much, just enough to cover the city like a held breath. I made tea, the same lavender blend I had saved for her gift. But this time, I drank it myself, from Grandma's teacup. The one with the tiny crack near the rim. The one Mom said wasn't good for guests. And I sat on the windowsill, feet pulled close, watching the flakes land in silence. No buzzing phone, no stream, no applause in the background of someone else's life, just me. Finally centered in a room where the light wanted to land on me. Christmas came with the usual messages, not calls, just forwarded memes, 2 exclamation points too cheerful, as if digital decorations could make up for actual warmth. Mom sent a group text. "Dinner at 5. Bring something sweet." I wasn't in the mood to bring anything sweet. They hadn't said I was invited, but they hadn't said I wasn't. That's how they did it. Plausible kindness with sharp edges. I read the message and set down my phone. Then I took out my own ingredients. That night I baked my grandmother's gingerbread loaf. Not for them, not for tradition, but because I missed the smell of cinnamon clinging to my sleeves. I wrapped a slice in parchment, tied it with twine, and left it at the foot of her headstone the next morning. The air was still. Even the birds were quiet, like they knew someone. Had chosen peace today. I didn't go to Christmas dinner. No explanation. No excuses. I turned off my phone at 4:58 p.m. and laid on the couch with a book Grandma once gave me, the spine cracked, pages underlined in soft pencil. "You get to leave when the room no longer sees you," she had once said. "And if they don't ask where you went, they never really saw you at all." They called the next day. First Mom, then Dad, then a message from my sister. "Seriously? You couldn't even send a text?" I didn't reply, because I was done. Sending anything into silence. Done performing presence in a place that only clapped when I was useful. January arrived, and the world felt cleaner than it had in years. One afternoon, I walked past a bridal boutique with new displays in the window. I paused without meaning to. A mannequin stood in soft white lace. The cut wasn't mine. The sleeves were wrong. But for a second, I imagined myself in a room where someone held that dress up for me. Not out of envy or convenience, but love. Then, I smiled and kept walking, because that vision belonged to someone I no longer had to wait for. Spring came slowly. I grew herbs on my windowsill, made my own soup stock, started painting again, badly but honestly. And when the bookstore offered me a chance to run their new branch 2 towns over, quiet, lakeside, forgotten by tourists, I said yes without asking permission. No one asked why I was leaving. They just gave me the keys. On moving day, I packed light. No heirlooms, no leftovers from a family that only saw what I could do, not who I was. Just one box, labeled in soft ink, mine. I didn't leave out of spite. I didn't cut them off. I just stopped walking toward a house that always made me feel small. And when the next wedding came, or the next holiday, I'm sure they noticed I wasn't there. But I wasn't angry anymore. Just gone. The door didn't slam. It didn't creak. It simply clicked shut. And no one thought to check if I was ever coming back.